Good afternoon, students. I am Dr. Damodari. Welcome to the pharmacology class. Today's topic is structure activity relationship and dose response relationship. Coming to the structure activity relation. What is structure activity relationship? The activity of a drug is intimately related to its chemical structure. Knowledge of the chemical structure of a drug is useful for number one, synthesis of new compounds with more specific actions and fewer adverse effects. Second use is synthesis of competitive antagonists. Third one is the understanding the mechanism of drug action. By knowing the chemical structure, we can synthesize new compounds with more specific actions and fewer adverse effects. We can synthesize competitive antagonists and we can understand the mechanism of drug actions. Coming to synthesis of new compounds with more specific actions and fewer adverse effects. What is the purpose of synthesizing new compounds or its substitutes? It is to increase or decrease the duration of action of original drug or to get a more potent compound. Examples are procaine and procainamide. Procaine is a local anesthetic. When it is given IV, it decreases the heart rate and it will reduces the excitability of the heart. Whereas modification with the structure of the procaine, we will get procainamide. This procainamide, it is having longer duration of action. Why? Because procaine is hydrolyzed by the plasma enzymes and so its duration of action is very short. Whereas procainamide, it is not hydrolyzed by the plasma enzymes, so its duration of action is long and it is having its actions on heart and it will decrease the excitability of the heart, so it is used for the treatment of cardiac arrhythmias. Next example is atropine to hometropine. Here we are decreasing the duration of action of a drug, that is atropine. Atropine is a longer acting drug. It will act for more than 7 days. Its actions will remain for 7 days, whereas hometropine, it is having lesser duration of action. Its actions will remain up to only 24 hours. Atropine causes mydriasis and cycloplegia, whereas hometropine also causes mydriasis and cycloplegia, but duration of action is only for 1 day. Coming to the chlorothiazide to polythiazide. Chlorothiazide is a diuretic. Polythiazide is also a diuretic, but polythiazide is more potent when compared to chlorothiazide. That means the dose of the polythiazide is less when compared to chlorothiazide. Second use is to restrict the drug action to a particular system of the body. For it, example is chlorpromazine to trifluperazine. Chlorpromazine is a antipsychotic drug. It is having apart from its antipsychotic activity, it is having anticholinergic, sedative and hypotensive effects. So whereas trifluperazine, it is not having the adverse effects which are caused by the chlorpromazine. By structural modification of the chlorpromazine molecule, trifluperazine has been synthesized and it is having more potent antipsychotic effect with negligible sedative and hypnotic actions. Coming to the third point, to reduce the adverse reactions and other disadvantages associated with the available drugs. Examples are nicotinic acid and nicotinamide. This nicotinic acid is used in the treatment of pellagra. The nicotinic acid, it may produce itching and flushing of the skin and sometimes it will cause hypotension. Whereas nicotinamide having structural similarity with nicotine. This nicotinamide is having more efficacious effect than nicotine against pellagra and does not produce itching or flushing. The second example is benzyl penicillin and phenoxymethyl penicillin. This benzyl penicillin is hydrolyzed by the gastric acid, whereas phenoxymethyl penicillin, it is resistant to gastric acid. Coming to the second use of synthesis of new compounds. By knowing the structure of the drug molecule, we can synthesize competitive antagonists. Examples are para-aminobenzoic acid and para-aminosalicylic acid. This para-aminobenzoic acid is an essential growth factor for several microorganisms. And these bacteria, they will utilize para-aminobenzoic acid for synthesis of the folic acid, which is important for the synthesis of the cell membrane of the bacteria. This para-aminosalicylic acid, it is having structural similarity with para-aminobenzoic acid. So if we give para-aminosalicylic acid, it competes with the para-aminobenzoic acid, and the bacteria which utilizes this para-aminosalicylic acid, the cell wall synthesis is interrupted and the bacterial cell, the inhibition of the bacterial cell growth is seen if we use the para-aminosalicylic acid. This para-aminosalicylic acid competitively inhibits by the utilization of the para-aminobenzoic acid. Third one is the second example is morphine and nalorphine. Nalorphine is having similar structure as morphine. So this nalorphine is used for the treatment of morphine poisoning. Nalorphine is an antagonist to morphine. Coming to the third use of structure activity relationship is understanding the mechanism of drug actions. So how will you understand the mechanism of drug actions? Example, adrenaline, isoprenaline, dichloroisopropyl, arterenol. These three drugs are having structural similarities. Whereas adrenaline, it stimulates both alpha and beta receptors, whereas isoprenaline will stimulate only beta adrenergic receptors. Whereas dichloroisopropyl arterenol, it blocks the adrenergic receptors. So by knowing the structure of the molecule, we can know what is the mechanism of the drug action. It shows the importance of certain chemical groups for the drug action and also gives some idea about the mechanism of action. The second example is chlorpromazine and imipramine. Chlorpromazine is a antipsychotic drug, whereas imipramine is antidepressant. Both are having structural similarities, but chlorpromazine acts as antipsychotic, and whereas imipramine, it will act as antidepressant. Then coming to the dose response relationship. The effect produced by a drug depends upon the concentration of the drug present at the site of action, and the magnitude of the drug effect is a function of the dose administered. Each drug is having characteristic dose response curves for a specified set of conditions, but in general, the log-dose response curves conforms to the S-shaped or sigmoid type or to the segments of the sigmoid. The shape of the log-dose response curve is sigmoid, and the response will related to the S-shaped or sigmoid type or to the segments of the sigmoid. There are two types of dose response relationships. One is graded or quantal dose response relationship. Second one is the all or quantal or all or none dose response relationship. Coming to the graded dose response relationship or quantitative dose response relationship. Usually this dose response relationship we will do it in vitro studies. This type of relationship relates to the size of the response in a single biological unit to the dose of the drug. Single biological unit means we can take a strip of skeletal muscle or smooth muscles. Example for skeletal muscle is frog rectus muscle. For smooth muscles is duodenum or ileal strip of the rabbit or mice. Coming to the graded dose response relationship, if we increase the dose, we will get increase in the response. See, this graph shows with 1 mg of the histamine on isolated guinea pig ileum, we will get only this much of response. Whereas with 2 milligrams, we will get, there will be increase in the response. And if we increase the dose, the response will get increased. And this increase in response will subside at a certain concentration. And the response at which the effect is not showing is threshold response. And the dose with which this threshold response we will get is the threshold dose. Here we will get threshold response or ceiling response. Here with the 64 milligrams of histamine, we will get the maximum response, that is threshold response or ceiling response. If we increase the dose further, we won't get the increase in response. This is graded dose response curve. The ceiling dose allows us to compare the therapeutic efficacy of various pharmacologically active compounds. And coming to the dose response curve, when we plot the dose response curve of graded dose response, it looks like hyperbola. This is the dose response curve plotted on a graph. It is hyperbola. And this is the log dose response curve or the curve of the graded dose response. So here the shape of the graph is sigmoid, whereas with dose the shape is hyperbola. With log dose it is sigmoidal in shape, that is S shape. And the 25 to 75% of this sigmoid curve is linear. That means if we increase the dose, we will get the more response. The response is directly proportional to the dose. What are the advantages of the log dose response curves? Are a wide range of drug doses can be easily displayed on a graph, and we can compare the activity of various compounds, and the middle portion of the sigmoid is linear and suitable for various calculations and conclusions. The second type of dose response curve is quantal or all or none phenomena. Here usually we will take the intact animals to do this dose response relationship. Each animal is categorized as responding or non-responding if we see the therapeutic effect of the drug. That is, example, if we see the anti-epileptic action of a drug, whether if we give the drug to the animal, if it responds or not responding, whether the animal is having anticonvulsive effect, or showing anticonvulsive effect with the drug or not. And in case of lethal toxicity test, each animal is classified as dead or alive at a specified time after the administration of the test dose. Here all or none principle means if the individual is responding to the drug or not responding to the drug. This is the graph showing the all or none principle. Here the log dose, some animals they will die with the zero dose. Log dose zero dose, 25% of the population are died with the 0.0 dose of the log dose, whereas 25% of animals will die with log dose of 2 micrograms per kg. Whereas the in between group, that is 0.0 to 2 micrograms per kg, maximum number of animals are responding. It is a inverted bell shape. In this, about 10% of animals in a given population are killed at the dose level of log dose 0, and 10% are not killed until the dose is increased to log dose 2. Majority are killed at the doses between 0.5 to 1.5 log doses. So, coming to the what is potency and efficacy. Potency means the amount of drug used to get the response. Here drug X and drug Y are present. The dose of the drug X is lesser when compared to the dose of the drug Y. It shows that drug X is more potent than drug Y. And coming to the efficacy, here the efficacy of the drug X is more than the efficacy of the drug Y. Efficacy means the response we will get with the drug. These two graphs showing, one is the potency of the drug and second one is the efficacy. Efficacy means how much response we will get is efficacy. So here drug X is more potent and more efficacious than drug Y. For example, the anti-inflammatory dose of the Piroxicam is 20 milligrams, whereas with diclofenac sodium it is 200 milligrams, and with ibuprofen it is 1200 milligrams. So by seeing this, we will know the drug Piroxicam is more potent than diclofenac sodium and ibuprofen, whereas diclofenac sodium is less potent than Piroxicam but more potent than ibuprofen. Whereas ibuprofen is less potent than both Piroxicam and diclofenac sodium. And regarding the analgesic doses of morphine and pethidine, morphine is more potent than pethidine. Morphine with 10 milligrams, it shows its analgesic effect, whereas pethidine will require 10 milligrams. So the potency of morphine is more than the pethidine. Coming to the efficacy, efficacy is the response which is performed by a drug. Example, the natriuretic action is highest with loop diuretics. Example for loop diuretic is furosemide, and least with potassium sparing diuretics. Example, spironolactone, and it is in between. Efficacy of the diuretic activity of thiazide diuretics is in between loop diuretics and potassium sparing diuretics. Example for thiazide diuretic is hydrochlorothiazide. The efficacy is more important than potency. Here, aspirin is an analgesic. It is less potent and less efficacious analgesic than morphine. Morphine is a opioid analgesic. The analgesic activity of aspirin is less potent and less efficacious than morphine. When compared to pethidine and morphine, pethidine is less potent and equally efficacious analgesic than morphine. And coming to the CNS depressant activity of diazepam and phenobarbital, diazepam is more potent and less efficacious CNS depressant activity than phenobarbital. And coming to the therapeutic index. What is therapeutic index? It is an appropriate assessment of the safety of the drug. Therapeutic index, it is an appropriate assessment of the safety of the drug, and it is expressed in the ratio of the median lethal dose to the median effective dose. Therapeutic index is lethal dose 50 by effective dose 50. So what is lethal dose? Lethal dose is the dose which would be expected to kill 1/2 of an unlimited populations of the same species and strain, same strain. And coming to the effective dose 50, this is the dose which produces the desired response in 50% of the test populations. As LD50 is cannot be worked out in clinical practice, therapeutic range or therapeutic window is substituted with lethal dose. So what is therapeutic window or therapeutic range? We will get response with minimal dose, and we can get the response, that is adverse effects, with the maximum dose. The range between the at which we will get the minimum dose and the maximum tolerable adverse effects, the dose which we will get the maximum tolerable adverse effects is the therapeutic window or therapeutic range. And this therapeutic window will not be confused with the therapeutic window period, window phenomena. That is, some drugs, they will show therapeutic window phenomena. That means at proper concentration of the plasma concentration only, they will show their effects. Example, the example for therapeutic window phenomena is clonidine and antipsychotic drugs, and they will show the therapeutic window phenomena. The plasma concentrations of the antipsychotic drug will be from 50 to 150 micrograms per milliliter of plasma. And coming to the therapeutic index in human beings, the dose which produces a defined unwanted effect in 50% of the test subject, that is the toxic dose, by dose producing the therapeutic effect in 50% of the test subjects. It is the therapeutic index of the drugs which we will use in clinical practice. So some drugs, they may show more than one therapeutic indices. Example, benzodiazepines. Why? Because benzodiazepines, they are having hypnotic activity and general anesthetic activity. The therapeutic index for hypnotic activity is less than the dose required for benzodiazepines to perform hypnotic activity is less when compared to the dose to get the general anesthetic activity. And coming to the aspirin, the dose required to treat an headache is only 300 milligrams, whereas the dose required in treating rheumatoid arthritis is in grams, 2 to 3 grams. So these drugs which are having multiple actions, they will show two therapeutic indices, more than one therapeutic indices. This is the example for therapeutic index of the benzodiazepines. This benzodiazepine diazepam, it will show hypnotic activity at the dose of 10 milligrams, whereas it will show adverse effects at 80 milligrams. So the therapeutic index of the diazepam as hypnosis is 8, whereas the therapeutic index of the diazepam to show general anesthetic effect, it is only 2. So here when we use diazepam for general anesthesia, the therapeutic index is only 2. It is having narrow therapeutic index. So the margin of safety is less when used as general anesthetic, whereas margin of safety as hypnosis is more. And these are the examples for drugs which are having with high therapeutic index. That those are aspirin. Aspirin is a analgesic, benzodiazepines. These are hypnotic and sedative drugs. Atenolol is a antihypertensive drugs. Atropine. Atropine is an alkaloid used for the treatment of organophosphorus poisoning. And penicillin G is an antibiotic. Ampicillin and amoxicillin. All these are the antibiotics. So the therapeutic index of these drugs are more. So they can use safely in clinicals. Whereas examples for drugs with low therapeutic index, these are theophylline, lithium, diazepam, phenytoin, carbamazepine, gentamicin, barbiturates, cytotoxic drugs, and anti-arrhythmic drugs. These drugs having with low therapeutic index. So we should be cautious while using these drugs with low therapeutic index. Why? Because these are having low margin of safety. And what is the significance of the therapeutic index is, it indicates the safety margin of a drug. Example, therapeutic index of the benzodiazepines are more than 100 as compared to barbiturates. For barbiturates, it is 8 to 10. Therapeutic index of barbiturates are 8 to 10, whereas for benzodiazepines it is 100. High therapeutic index means wide margin of safety, and low therapeutic index means narrow margin of safety. While using with narrow margin of safety drugs, that is with drugs with low therapeutic index, adequate precautions should be taken, as slight increase in the dose may lead to toxicity. So therapeutic drug monitoring has to be done while giving the drugs with low therapeutic index. And coming to the combined effects of the drugs. In clinical practice, we will use more than 2 drugs simultaneously to treat the patients. And this may result in increase or decrease in the response of the drug depending on the circumstances. So, what are the drugs which will increase the response? Increased response, we will see increased response as additive effect, synergistic effect, or potentiation. So, what is additive effect? When 2 drugs are using simultaneously, the response produced by these combining these 2 drugs is equal to the individual drugs. So it is additive effect. The total pharmacological action of 2 or more drugs administered together is equivalent to the sum of their individual pharmacological actions. That is 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Examples are aspirin and paracetamol in treating pain and fever. These aspirin and paracetamol, the mechanism of action is same. They inhibit the COX enzyme, whereas aspirin, second example is aspirin and codeine in treating pain. Aspirin is, the mechanism of action of aspirin is it inhibits the COX enzyme, whereas codeine is, it is an opioid analgesic. It acts through the opioid receptors. So if two drugs acts by different, having different mechanism of action, it is known as summation. And what is synergism? Synergism is derived from two Greek words, that is ergo means work and syn means together. If we compare if we give two drugs, the effect produced by the two drugs is more than two. Synergism means facilitation of pharmacological response by the concomitant use of two or more drugs. Examples are codeine and aspirin in for the treatment of pain. Codeine is a opioid analgesic, whereas aspirin is the non-opioid, that is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. And chlorothiazide and etinol. Chlorothiazide is a diuretic, whereas etinol is the beta blocker. So if we combine these two, we will get more response when compared to the individual drugs in the treatment of hypertension. And the next, another example is sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim in treatment of the bacterial infections. Sulfamethoxazole, it inhibits the folate synthase enzyme, whereas trimethoprim, it will inhibit the dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. So if these two are combined, the effect is more efficient. And here, what is time synergism? Time synergism means if synergism results in prolongation of action of one drug, one of the drugs, then it is time synergism. Examples are procaine, combination of procaine and adrenaline. Procaine will increase the duration of action of the adrenaline. Procaine, it is a local anesthetic. When it combines with the adrenaline, it increases the duration of action of the adrenaline. It is time synergism. Example for time synergism. Then coming to the potentiation. Potentiation means the enhancement of action of one drug by another, which is not having direct activity, but it is having indirect actions. That is 1 plus 0 is more than 1. Example, acetylcholine and physostigmine. Acetylcholine will contract the skeletal muscles, whereas acetylcholine is metabolized by the cholinesterase enzyme. This physostigmine is anti-cholinesterase enzyme. It will inhibit the cholinesterase enzyme and allows acetylcholine to interact with the neuromuscular junctions. So it will potentiates the actions of the acetylcholine. And another example is levodopa and carbidopa. Carbidopa, it helps in the inhibition of decarboxylation of the levodopa at the peripheral site. So more amount of levodopa is available to enter into the CNS through blood-brain barrier. So carbidopa, it potentiates the actions of the levodopa by decreasing its peripheral decarboxylation. And another example is clavulanic acid and amoxicillin. Amoxicillin is a antibiotic. These bacteria, they will synthesize beta-lactamase enzymes. These beta-lactamase enzymes, they will destroy the penicillins. So if we combine the amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, this clavulanic acid, it will inhibit the beta-lactamase enzyme and helps in potentiation of the amoxicillin. These are the examples for potentiation. And coming to the decreased response. So when two drugs combine, we may get a decrease in response. So examples are antagonism. What is antagonism? The phenomena of opposing actions of two drugs and the same physiological system is termed as drug antagonism. If we use two drugs, one drug will inhibit the actions of the other drug. So this antagonism, there are So many types of antagonisms: physical antagonism, chemical antagonism, physiological antagonism, competitive antagonism, and non-competitive antagonism. Coming to the physiological antagonism, physical antagonism. Based on the physical property of the drug, antagonism, it will inhibit the actions of the other drug. So example is activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is used in treating poisoning. This activated charcoal, it will absorb the alkaloids present in the poison, and it will inhibit the action of the alkaloid. And second one is the chemical antagonism. Example for chemical antagonism means one drug, the actions of one drug are inhibited by the chemical reaction of the other drug. Here examples are potassium permanganate. This potassium permanganate, it will oxidize the alkaloids, and it is used in the gastric lavage. Gastric lavage means cleaning of the stomach in poisoning cases. So this potassium permanganate, it will oxidize the alkaloids. And second example is chelating agents. These chelating agents, they are used in heavy metal poisoning. Example, ball. Ball means spirit is anti-leucite, and calcium disodium edetate. They will inactivate the arsenic and lead compounds. So they are used in the treatment of arsenic and lead poisoning. And some drugs, when they mixed in the syringe or infusion bottle, they will inactivate the other drug. Example, thiopentan sodium and succinylcholine. These will interact each other and inactivate the succinylcholine. It will inactivate the thiopentan sodium. So these two should not be mixed in the same syringe or infusion bottle. Another example is penicillin G and succinylcholine. These two should not be mixed. And heparin and penicillin, tetracycline, streptomycin, and hydrocortisone. These antibiotics, they should not mix with the heparin. And hydrocortisone is a corticosteroid, and it should not be mixed with heparin. If mixed, there will be chemical antagonism will occur, and the inactivation of the drug will result. So coming to the physiological antagonism. Here one drug will antagonize the effects of the other drug. Histamine and adrenaline on bronchial smooth muscle and on blood pressure. Histamine will dilate the blood vessels, whereas adrenaline, it will contract the blood vessels. Histamine, because histamine during anaphylactic shock, release of histamine will cause hypotension. If we use adrenaline, it will antagonize the histamine actions, and it will increases the BP. And on bronchial smooth muscles, histamine will cause constriction of the bronchial smooth muscles, whereas adrenaline, it will relaxes the bronchial smooth muscle. This is example for physiological antagonism. Another example is glucagon and insulin. Glucagon will increase the blood sugar levels in the plasma, whereas insulin will decrease the blood sugar levels. And other example is hydrochlorothiazide and amiloride on urinary excretion of potassium. This hydrochlorothiazide will increase the potassium excretion, whereas amiloride, it will decrease the potassium excretion through urine. These are the examples for physiological antagonism. And coming to the competitive antagonism, this is also known as reversible antagonism or equilibrium antagonism. Here one drug will compete for the receptor site. It is a reversible antagonism. Suppose one drug, that is, if we increase the concentration of the agonist, the antagonist actions of the drug are abolished, or the reversal of the antagonism will occur. So in this competitive antagonism, the graph will shift to the right with the same response. Examples are acetylcholine and atropine. Atropine and acetylcholine, they will compete the receptors, acetylcholine receptors, the same type. If we increase the concentration of acetylcholine, the atropine actions are subsided and acetylcholine shows its action. Other example is noradrenaline and prazosin. So the graph of the competitive antagonism is the response will shift to the right. If you increase the concentration of the agonist, it replaces the antagonist and it shows its response with the same efficacy. But there will be shift to the right. Whereas in non-competitive antagonism, it is irreversible or non-equilibrium, and here the antagonist will binds with the same receptor or adjacent to the receptor and not allowing the antagonist to bind with the receptor. And the binding here is covalent bonding, whereas in competitive antagonism, the binding is hydrogen bonding. So hydrogen or van der Waals bonding. So the breakage of the antagonist with the receptor will fast in competitive antagonism, whereas in non-competitive antagonism it is irreversible. There will be covalent bonding occurs, and if it occurs it is very slow, and the inactivation of the receptor will occur if the antagonist to react with the receptor, new receptors has to be synthesized. Examples are noradrenaline and phenoxybenzamine. Noradrenaline is a agonistic drug, whereas phenoxybenzamine is the adrenergic blocker. And the next example is acetylcholine and decamethonium at neuromuscular junctions. Acetylcholine will contract the muscle, whereas decamethonium it will relaxes the muscle. And the graph, in this graph, if we increase the agonist, there will not be effect which shows for the first dose. That is, if we increase the dose in non-competitive antagonism, the response is subsequently becoming flattened. So there will be decrease in the response. Why? Because the antagonist binds with the receptor with covalent bonding, and dissociation of the antagonist from the receptor is very slow, or there won't be any dissociation of the receptors. So the curve will not shift to the right, and there will be flattening of the response. This is non-competitive antagonism. And the difference between the competitive and non-competitive antagonism are the receptor binding is in competitive antagonism, it is with van der Waals or hydrogen bonding, whereas in non-competitive it is covalent bonding. And the antagonism here is surmountable, that is incomplete. So if we increase the dose of the agonist, the antagonist will dissociate from the site. So it is surmountable, whereas with non-competitive inhibition, it is insurmountable. And the dose response curve, it will shift to the right in competitive inhibition, whereas there is no shift in non-competitive inhibition. And coming to the maximum response of the agonist, with competitive inhibition, we can achieve the maximum response of the agonist, whereas in non-competitive inhibition, we can't achieve. And the duration of action is, with competitive inhibition, it is very short duration of action, shorter duration, whereas with non-competitive inhibition, it is longer duration. So it will take time for the new receptors to synthesize and act. These are the differences between competitive and the non-competitive antagonism. And coming to the clinical relevance of the drug antagonism. What is the importance of drug antagonism in clinical practice is to treat the certain conditions and poisoning. What are the conditions? Antacids, we use antacids to treat the peptic ulcer. They act through chemical antagonism. And use of adrenaline for anaphylactic shock. This is the example for the physiological antagonism. Here, the hypotension caused by the anaphylactic shock, caused by the histamines during anaphylactic shock, are antagonized by using adrenaline. And use of naloxone in opioid poisoning. Naloxone is the opioid analgesic. So, using naloxone in opioid poisoning, we will antagonize the effects of the morphine. And atropine for OP poisoning. Atropine is used in the treatment of organophosphorus poisoning to treat the adverse effects caused by the organophosphorus poisoning. And coming to the second clinical relevance is to overcome or reduce the adverse effects of the drug. That is by using benzhexol with trifluperazine. Trifluperazine is an antipsychotic drug to compensate the adverse effects caused by the trifluperazine. Benzhexol is used along with trifluperazine. And third one is to assess the efficacy of the drug in presence of the other drugs. The efficacy of the penicillins are reduced if they are used along with tetracyclines. Tetracyclines are bacteriostatic antibiotics, whereas penicillins are bactericidal antibiotics. If we use both these drugs in combination, the efficacy of the penicillins are reduced. So, to assess the efficacy of the drug in presence of the other drug, these are the clinical relevance of the antagonism. With this, I have completed dose response relationship and structure activity relationship. So, go through the textbook, and if you are having any doubts, clarify with me. At the end of the session, that is, if you go through the topic, at the end of session, you should be able to describe the dose response relationship and interpret dose response curves, and you should be able to tell the advantages of the combined effects of the combined effects of the drugs, and you should be able to explain what is therapeutic index and therapeutic range with clinical significance. Thank you one and all for bearing me for lecture. Thank you.